Funding for Off 90 is provided in part by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund and the citizens of Minnesota.
Cruising your way next, Off 90. Take a spin on the Tilt-A-Whirl. See how prison life was turned into a musical. Learn what it's like to live life as a comedian. And Jack and Kitty play us a jaunty tune. It's all coming up on your next stop, Off 90. Hi, I'm Barbara Keith. Thanks for joining me on this trip off 90. Everybody's familiar with the Tilt-A-Whirl. It's a carnival ride that's guaranteed to bring you stomach-churning thrills. But did you know it was invented in Faribault, Minnesota? There's no height restriction to learning more about this traditional Midway marvel.
It was one of the original rides when the park opened in 1976. It's been moved around quite a bit at the park, but it's definitely one of the rides that's stood the test of time and still is just as popular as it was then. My name's Andy. I'm the rides manager here at Valley Fair in Shakopee, Minnesota. We're standing right in front of our Tilter ride. It was recently renamed the Tilter from the Tilt-A-Whirl. I think that the Tilter ride is definitely one of the rides that's popular with all families. There's consistently a line. I would say it's definitely in the top 10 to 15 rides when it comes to when someone comes to Valley Fair, one of the rides they have to ride.
While the ride is in motion, please keep your feet on the floor and your hands on the bar in front of you. Thank you and enjoy your ride.
Tilt-A-Whirl, for most people will remember it as a ride that they were on when they were a kid. They'd go to the local carnival. The Tilt-A-Whirl is it's a big ride that has 7 cars on it, and it goes around in a circle, and it's an undulating track. And there's a car that sits on that track, and then based on how many people you have in the car and the weight of those people in the car, it spins around this way and then it spins around that way. And most people will say, oh, I know what a Tilt-A-Whirl is. I got sick on a Tilt-A-Whirl, or, oh, I had my first kiss on a Tilt-A-Whirl. The Tilt-A-Whirl was actually invented here in Faribault by a local guy named Herbert Sellner in 1926. He started originally making toys, and he slowly built his empire into actually doing carnival rides. One of the very first carnival rides that he invented was actually a toboggan type flume ride, if you will. And then he very quickly moved into the Tilt-A-Whirl. So he actually took his son and put his son up on a kitchen table, and then took the legs of the kitchen table and rocked with his son, and was watching basically for the reaction that would happen if I tilt the table this way or if I tilt the table, what's happening to, what's on top of the table. And that was way back in 1926. I have the original patent. It's an amusement apparatus designed for parks and resorts where it is desired to accommodate a large number of pleasure seekers. Will furnish pleasurable and unexpected sensations. The Tilt-A-Whirl was manufactured here in Faribault for almost 80 years. It was sold in 2011 to a company in Texas and is still manufactured today. There were at least 3 or 4 generations that it had gone through a number of family members that kept the corporation going for generations. When you say Sellner, you immediately think of Tilt-A-Whirl. In the original Sellner plant, there's still a guy there that actually refurbishes carnival rides. There's actually another gal here that has all the original decals. There had always been talked about, hey, how can we get, the Tilt-A-Whirl to be kind of more known, so when you think of Faribault, you think Tilt-A-Whirl. Just like when you think Bemidji, you think immediately Paul Bunyan. So I started talking with a gal, her name is Peggy Kylan, and she's lived here all of her life. And she said, well, I know where I can get a couple of old tubs, and maybe we could refurbish them.
So what is this?
An individual ride car from the original Tilt-A-Whirl ride. You've probably seen them at carnivals.
Yeah.
It was invented in my hometown of Faribault, Minnesota. My husband and I were sitting watching TV that very night that I'd actually secured it, and we were watching on the History Channel a program called American Restoration.
So when you operated this thing, you didn't have a carny voice going on?
No.
Come on, cowboy. Where's your carny voice?
Out of my own pocket, flew to Las Vegas. We did a filming, basically, of me coming there, dropping off the tub, and they gave me a number.
Then they've sold thousands of them, all worldwide too, right?
Absolutely, yep. And the number was $8,500. And we were literally able to raise it within, it was 4 to 6 weeks. And again, all through community donations, everything. It was just, people were so excited about it.
Tammy's here for the Tilt-A-Whirl.
It's gorgeous. I mean, the way it gleams and shines. The colors, I think, are spot on.
It's perfect. It's just what it was.
Tilt-A-Whirl, girl, I'm seeing starry swirls. One more turn and I think I'll hurl.
There are, many uses of the Tilt-A-Whirl in current pop culture, if you will. There's a local musician named Trapper that has a song around the Tilt-A-Whirl. Bruce Springsteen has a song that mentions the Tilt-A-Whirl in it. There's an image of it in a Supernatural episode where the guys are standing literally in front of a Tilt-A-Whirl ride, and it actually is one that has the original graphic of what we call the creepy clown on the back of it. When you come to Faribault, a couple things to remember. Faribault is actually a very historic town. We are actually having the largest historic district, second only to St. Paul. And these Tilt-A-Whirls are currently bookend at either end of our downtown, one on 2nd Street, one on 5th Street, right on our Central Avenue. They're super fun to come down, just get your picture taken. It will bring back great memories for you to sit in the car, snuggle up with your honey, and have your picture taken, and it'll be a lasting memory. Oh, there we go, that's what I like.
Good ride. Everybody started puking and started spraying over everybody around the ride.
Hang on tight and enjoy the spin.
Every year, one of the full-time ride managers has to ride every ride. Tilter is one of the, not my favorites. I really don't do well with the spinning ride. I try to spread it out over as many days as possible because those spinning rides, it can ruin my day. Honestly, I don't know where his mind was when he created it, but obviously he made a ride that's very popular. You still see it at carnivals and fairs and amusement parks all over the world.
The term 3 hots and a cot means 3 hot meals a day and a place to sleep. It can also mean prison. Theo St. Main and Debbie Fuhrer based their play 3 Hots and a Cot on their experiences working at a federal prison. They brought songwriter Greg Hintermeister on board and turned it into a musical.
Well, 20 years ago, Debbie and I were teaching a theater therapy class at a federal prison. And during that period of time, we workshopped a play with the inmates, and that play became 3 Hots and a Cot.
The whole reason that we started doing theater therapy was I was doing my internship in counseling, and I thought, it'd be great is if we could teach our students, inmates, vicariously what are the consequences of their actions, and then maybe we could do it through theater where they try different roles on. And Bureau of Prisons was was a little, looking at that a little askance, like, "Wait, what are you doing, theater therapy?" And so it took me about 6 months to convince them that this was a good idea. And I think it's still going on now.
This is nuts. Like, none of them can make it on the outside. They have a real convict mentality, a lot of them. Hey, Vic!
Last year, I found an old copy of the script as I was going through a file cabinet. And I said, wait, we were always going to do this on the outside because we've only done it one time on the inside of the Federal Medical Center. So I called up Theo and said, remember we were always going to do this show, 3 Hots and a Cot, and we thought this is the best time to do it. And we thought, you know, we could probably use a little more music because we just had a couple of songs. And so then I kind of sidled up to Greg and said, hey, you want to do a couple of songs? And then you could tell him what it really turned into.
So then we started working on the songs, and we did a couple, wrote a couple, and I guess you liked them because now there's 8 or 9 songs in the show. So it really has turned out into a very, for me, a very interesting mix of drama and comedy and music and even dance, and it's very interesting.
That whole environment behind the razor wire is kind of unknown to most of us on the outside. And we heard things that were really compelling and interesting, like that a fellow might really miss drinking out of a glass, something that I never would have thought of, or driving a car. Obviously, inmates aren't driving cars for years at a time. That someone would miss that. I just hadn't even thought of that. Or I overheard a conversation between 2 inmates one time where they were talking about what kind of soap did they buy at the commissary and whether or not the soap dried out their skin. And these were big, tough-looking guys. But that attention to those small things, because they don't have a lot of choice on the inside, was something that really struck both of us and something we wanted to insert in the stories that we told.
The rep was very welcoming to allow us to bring in a show we've never done outside of prison and do it here at the rep. And they were very open to having the world premiere of this play, world premiere on the outside, be at their theater.
Have you heard the one about Danny Browning? Danny is a touring comedian who hails from southern Indiana. We caught up with Danny before a show in Rochester to learn what it's like turning funny life experiences into a career.
I knew from a very early age. I would stay up late when I was 11 and 12, and I would watch these stand-up comedy shows live from the Improv, A&E's Comedy Hour. It would show these comedians doing 7, 8-minute sets. Bill Engvall, Ellen DeGeneres, Jeff Foxworthy. Something clicked. I knew when I was 11 years old that I thought that was a great job. I thought it was really cool, and I knew I wanted to do it.
Ladies and gentlemen, my good friend Danny Browning.
Keep it going for all the comedians, including John, the comedy locomotion engineer.
Once I had that first 3 or 4 minutes, and I saw that I did have a talent to make people laugh as a group, then yeah, obviously something clicked.
I actually belong to a fraternity that's nothing but coffee drinkers. It's called Kappa Cappuccino. My buddy, the headhunter over there, he's in Decapitata. Never met the guy before in my life. Scared to death of him.
It's good to be here. I've been all over Minnesota. I've been all over your great state. I've been here. I've been to Duluth. I've been to Thief River Falls. I know, these are places you only dream about. I have been there. thing I love most about performing, I would say, is still just hearing the laughter, getting the reaction. Last night I had a show, and afterwards the server comes up. She's really attractive. I think she's going to flirt with me, right? She looks at me dead in the eye and says, "You kind of remind me of an adult Beavis." I was like, "You kind of remind me of that chick from Law and Order, victim number 2. My philosophy towards what I wear when I perform has changed over the years. I like to look nice. If I'm going to be on stage, I feel like, 1, it makes me feel better, but 2, I kind of owe it to the audience. They don't want to see some schlub up there dressed like all schlubby. When I go on stage, what I'm focused on is identifying how far I can take these jokes. Like, what will be, not that I'm spitting out offensive stuff, but where's the line? Ultimately, it comes down to, are they laughing or not? Comedy is the only medium left where you get instant feedback on whether you're good or not. It is real time, right now. Do you think this fart joke is funny or not? Boom. Seriously, guys, you want to make your woman feel special every single day. I don't care whether it's been 29 years or 29 minutes. Simple. Just open her car door for her. And I don't mean, there you go, babe. It takes 10 seconds. Whether she tells you or not, she digs it. Plus, when you're walking from her door back to yours, perfect time to fart. For the guy. When I think about Rochester, I think about snow, which is currently happening right now. This snow where I live would have shut down the whole city. The grocery stores would have no bread or eggs whatsoever. I think about kind people, which is the difference between Rochester, Minnesota and Rochester, New York. It's also cold there, but they're not as kind. It's always a good vibe when I come here. Here we are walking in the Rochester skyways. La. I've come to Rochester a lot, probably in the 12th, 13th time over the years. Oh man, the Christmas lights are on with the snow. Look at that. 'Tis the season to be jolly, you guys, especially in Minnesota. We honeymooned in Minnesota so we could see the Mall of America. Bet you can't guess whose idea that was. I'm really trying to be more authentic with my material now. They have an amusement park with water rides and roller coasters, an aquarium. It says we could be there 3 days and not see it all. Ah! After 30 minutes, I was in Legoland trying to put together a Smith & Wesson. That's what comedians do. We go to the mall. We have a lot of time to waste during the day, especially when you're in a place where you're trying to specifically have material for that place. You have to walk around, you have to experience it. Creating material for me is fun. I mean, without doing that, you don't get the payoff. So creating material is like going to the gym to prepare for a big fight. The audience here in Rochester is patient and accepting, welcoming. She would send me text messages a lot when I was driving. I hated that. Where you at? What are you doing? I'm driving. I'm taking a half-ton vehicle down the interstate at 75 miles per hour. Unless I'm in Minnesota, then I'm going 95 miles per hour. It's not safe or responsible for me to be texting you. Now leave me alone before you make me spill my soup. Comedy clubs are meant to be a place where you can go and sit in the dark and not feel judged and not judge others. You forget your problems and you listen to me. It is good to be here in Rochester. I'll be honest, I had to rent a car to come here, but they were out of like good cars when I got to the lot, so they gave me a Chevy Silverado. And at first I was like, what am I gonna do driving this big gas guzzling truck across the Midwest, right? Until I got here to Rochester. Now it just feels right.
Jack and Kitty are high school sweethearts, Emmy award-winning avant-garde filmmakers, and critically acclaimed musicians. We were lucky enough to catch their performance at the Harris Peace Garden in Austin. Here they are performing their song, Waiting at the End of the Line.
I never met. The road is a song I haven't written yet. Most songs have no meaning, but neither does true love. And I keep on coming home to you. I find I see angels riding white horses in the sun. Most nights I dream of palaces made in the fortress of our secret song. And I keep on coming home. I find you waiting, waiting, waiting at the end of the line. It's good to know you're waiting. It's so good to know you are waiting, babe. You are waiting. You are waiting at the end of the line. Oh, baby, you are waiting at the end of the line. Sweet daddy, you are waiting at the end of the line. Danke, danke, danke.
We've reached the end of this tour off 90. Thanks for riding along. See you next time. But before we go, here's a bit of history about a camera manufacturer from Rochester.
The Conley Camera Company began in Spring Valley, Minnesota in the late 19th century. Carrie and Frederick Connelly started making cameras in the rear of their family-owned jewelry store. Childhood friend Richard Sears, founder of Sears, Roebuck & Company, later commissioned the Conley brothers to manufacture cameras for his burgeoning Sears catalog. Thanks to the new partnership, the Conley Camera Company soon gained widespread exposure. As a marketing tool to capitalize on the Rochester name associated with his direct competitor, Eastman Kodak, located in Rochester, New York, Sears proposed the Conleys move 30 miles north to Rochester, Minnesota. Conley Camera Company operated out of the 4th Street Southwest building in Rochester, Minnesota, growing from 16 employees to 135. Sears eventually bought the entire Conley Camera Company, and the Conley brothers went on to pursue other interests. Today, the restored original camera factory building is a restaurant.
Funding for Off 90 is provided in part by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund and the citizens of Minnesota.